What makes this whole thing so messy is how weird Sarah Whitmer's death was, combined with the fact that nobody can figure out why he would want her dead. That is the fuel for all the debate. The pair first crossed paths at a neighborhood coffee spot they both like to haunt. Ryan had grabbed a Java, and Sarah, stuck in the queue, spotted a paperback on his table that she had just finished. That shared love for reading sparked a chat. They ended up hanging out for hours, yakking about novels, films, tunes, and everything else they had in common. Turns out, they were both big on the outdoors, hitting the road. And furry friends, every time they hung out, the bond got tighter and the trust ran deeper. They learned what made the other tick, and eventually that buddy dynamic blossomed into a real romance. A few months down the line, Ryan popped the question to Sarah over a candlelit meal right back at that same coffee joint. Sarah was over the moon and naturally agreed. The lovebirds quickly picked a day to tie the knot. They hunted down a gorgeous 2-story pad in Hamilton. On April 10th, 2008, the big day finally arrived. They got hitched in a snug little chapel with all their tightest friends and relatives watching. Sarah personally handled every little bit of the planning. She was a knockout in that gown. Ryan was totally glued to her. Once the reception wrapped up with cheering and clapping, they jetted off for a Hawaiian honeymoon getaway. They chilled there for a fortnight, soaking up the tropical vibes and just enjoying married life. The newlyweds were head over heels. They were plotting out their lives and talking babies. Then a twist of fate wrecked everything. On Monday, August 11th, 2008, Sarah wrapped up work at the dentist's office and linked up with Ryan at her go-to coffee shop. They grabbed a bite and had a good long talk. Once they were done, they hoofed it back to the house. Sarah stashed the shopping bags and flopped onto the sofa. Ryan fetched her some water and a painkiller since she had been griping about a migraine earlier. He started the tub for her. They caught the end of their favorite show and blew each other a few kisses. Sarah headed up to the master's suite. She stripped down, organized her outfit, and got a towel ready. She sparked up some aroma candles and cranked her favorite playlist. Ryan flipped through the channels, paused on the soccer match for a bit, lounged for maybe 10 minutes, and then hollered for his wife. The music drowned him out, so she did not answer. Ryan crept upstairs to the bedroom, flicked on the tube, and shouted her name once more. Dead air. Getting a little freaked out, he headed straight for the bathroom. There was Sarah faceplant in the water. Ryan yanked the drain stopper and scrambled for the phone. The 911 tape started rolling at 10:49 p.m. A guy was screaming that his lady drowned in the tub. He figured she must have nodded off. He was freaking out so bad, he ignored the operator and blew valuable seconds that could have saved her. While staying on the line, Ryan finally listened to the operator walking him through it and managed to haul Sarah out of the water to start pumping her chest. Medics and cops pulled up to the Whitmer place 6 minutes later. The first look at the scene raised some serious red flags for the patrolmen. That bathroom was bone dry and spotless. No puddles or mess anywhere, which you would expect if someone just yanked a body out of a full tub. The place looked like it had been freshly scrubbed. Sarah was on the carpet in the buff, her skin totally dry. Her damp hair was the only clue that water was involved. The bedroom was impeccable too, which made the cops instantly think foul play. Ryan was pacing around the room like a maniac. He was standing there in his boxers. The EMTs could not find a heartbeat, so they started CPR immediately. Some pink foam was bubbling out of her nose and mouth, a classic sign of drowning. They tried twice to get a breathing tube down her throat right there on the rug, but it did not work. They hustled her to the rig and tried to shock her heart back into rhythm 2 more times, but got nothing. The whole time, Ryan stuck to her like glue. The doctors later said he was a total wreck. For 20 minutes after they hit the ER, they kept trying to revive her. But at 11:41 p.m., the doc called it. Ryan collapsed in the corridor and just bawled his eyes out. Nobody in their circle could have guessed that just 4 months post-wedding, a devastating event rocked the whole town, leaving Ryan as the only person accused of murdering his cherished young bride. Detectives immediately flagged the first account Ryan gave at the medical center as suspicious. He insisted they were alone in the house and that the evening was completely uneventful. They grabbed dinner out, headed back to the house, and settled in to watch some TV. When Sarah mentioned her head hurt, He handed her some pills and helped her to the bath. He claimed he found her face up, yet the dispatch tapes noted she was actually on her stomach. The husband seemed paralyzed by shock, chanting Sarah's name over and over like he was in a daze. Detectives leaned on him hard, forcing Ryan to stop playing the grieving husband and start answering questions. They needed to piece together exactly what went down with Sarah that evening. He gave the officers permission to look through the residence. Lab tests confirmed the pills were standard over-the-counter stuff, though she suffered from migraines all the time. The attacks hit so often that she took strong drugs that messed with her hormones and knocked her out cold. That detail became the foundation for the first theory about how she died. Once they swept the house, investigators found spots of blood stained on the carpet. Reports also noted that when first responders got there, the tub was bone dry and no wet towels were in sight. The floor tiles were also spotless, leading cops to believe Sarah had been murdered. They found absolutely no wet clothes or rags anywhere that could explain where the water went. His story flipped between the 911 call and the ER, turning him from a grieving spouse into the prime suspect. A look at Sarah's remains showed a distinct bruise on the right side of her forehead. She had a tiny bleed inside her eyelid and another mark on the left side of her neck. Her neck was banged up in the back, her underarm scraped, and her upper lip was cut and bruised. But the murder theory had holes since Sarah's fingernails were perfectly manicured and intact. She had no defensive scrapes on her joints, and Ryan didn't have a single scratch on him either. Sheriff Bishop ran a reenactment, but it failed to prove if the couple actually fought that night. Every bottle and brush in the bathroom was sitting exactly where it belonged. With zero signs of a fight, the whole situation was left wide open to guesswork. Either she never got in the water, or she just let her husband hold her down without fighting back. Dr. Russell Updegrove ran the postmortem and confirmed she definitely died from drowning. The report also listed bleeding in her neck muscles and several bumps on her scalp. Experts said she got hurt while she was still alive, but nobody knew how or where it happened. The case kept spinning its wheels, and toxicology screens showed zero drugs or alcohol in her system. On August 13th, 2008, police arrested Ryan for the aggravated murder of his wife. The charge hinged on that weird dispatch call, the staged crime scene, and Sarah's physical wound. That evidence was enough for the DA to book him for drowning his spouse. Everyone swore the couple was madly in love, and neighbors claimed they never saw them fight. They were building a life together. So what dark secret actually caused this disaster? The trial kicked off in March 2009, with dispatcher Ron Cronenberger taking the stand first. He described Ryan's demeanor on the line as strangely chill and collected. He also noted that Ryan sounded like he was just blowing into the receiver to fake giving CPR. The state argued that the tape, the crime scene, and her wounds proved Ryan was the killer. They claimed he held her head under the water in the tub until she stopped breathing. The bathtub itself became the star witness in the prosecution's case. Techs scanned the porcelain for prints and found streaks near the center using advanced UV imaging. They definitely found smudges and fingerprints all over the surface. They identified a forearm print, and hair analysis confirmed it belonged to a grown man. Even though the print's age was a mystery, the bathtub itself never became the smoking gun proving a fight between Ryan and Sarah. The state took it a step further, telling the jurors there was almost certainly a violent clash that night at the Whitmer house, sparked by reasons the suspect purposely kept to himself. They brought in a specialist who swore you can't just nod off and drown in a tub without booze or narcotics in your system. Based on what that expert told the court, the shock of water hitting your face would either wake you up or trigger a gag reflex to clear the airway. If that failed, the sudden drop in oxygen levels would snap the person back to consciousness. The medical examiner who handled the autopsy was also called to the stand. He claimed that if Sarah's body was dry while her hair was wet, it likely meant her head was shoved over the sink, toilet, or tub rim. She could have been held down face first or backwards, either under a running tap or into standing water. The state argued that Ryan kept Sarah's head submerged until she died, and because of that, he deserved a guilty verdict. Meanwhile, the defense stuck to Ryan's innocence, pointing out there was zero motive. His legal team didn't let up. They argued that if a brutal fight actually happened like the state said, there would be physical proof. Yet Ryan didn't have a scratch on him, and Sarah's nails were neither broken nor chipped. They insisted Sarah's injuries came from aggressive CPR and chest compressions, plus the multiple tries to insert a breathing tube at the scene during the ambulance ride and at the hospital. The defense ordered a second look at the body. Dr. Werner Spitz performed the exam and agreed the cause of death was drowning. He spotted trauma to her skull, lip, arms, and neck, along with a liver tear and internal neck bleeding. However, he couldn't say for sure if those wounds happened during the life-saving attempts. Witnesses claim the paramedics worked on reviving Sarah for about 45 minutes, suggesting the deep neck bruising likely came from an IV line used when they couldn't find a vein in her arm. Instead of calling it a homicide, Dr. Spitz ruled the manner of death as undetermined. The defense built their argument around the idea that skin simply dries faster than hair does. They even ran their own tests to see how fast skin air dries. They also claimed that the moment Ryan found his wife passed out, he pulled the plug on instinct. He did that while figuring out how to help her and getting 911 on the line. That timeline explains the dryness the water had already drained out before Ryan made the call. A demonstration by an expert witness showed that a wet body can dry off in just 7 minutes. A new hearing was scheduled for May 2010. Ryan's dad, Gary, claimed the state already had DNA results showing the disease well before that second court date. But the prosecutor refused to hand them over, believing they wouldn't have changed the jury's mind. Still, it's hard to know if the verdict would have flipped had the jury seen solid proof of Sarah's condition, which might have caused the drowning in the first place. The official reason for blocking a retrial was a mistake the jurors made during deliberation. Ryan stayed behind bars, and after another failed appeal, the Whitmer family got hit with a bad surprise. A woman named Jennifer Crew approached the DA with a story about Ryan's guilt. She claimed to be a friend of Ryan's, insisting they stayed in touch through calls and emails. Jennifer Crew testified that he rang her up on October 26th at 11:09 at night. He sounded totally panicked, telling her he'd hit Sarah in the living room the day she died. Sarah had found proof he was cheating, specifically some compromising photos. They screamed at each other for a long time, starting downstairs and moving up to the bedroom. Ryan shoved her into the bathroom and left her there without checking if she was okay, absolutely fuming. Once he cooled off, he found Sarah floating lifeless in the full tub. To cover his tracks, he mopped up the floor with towels and cooked up a story about an accident. Ryan's team fought hard for his release. The defense team completely dismantled Jennifer's story, arguing it didn't make a lick of sense. Investigators never found a single wet towel in the dryer or anywhere else, and the couple seemed totally faithful to one another. Money was never an issue for the family, and nobody ever heard them raising their voices at each other. Everyone who knew Ryan called him a gentle soul, the type of guy who never even got annoyed, let alone violent. He stood to gain absolutely nothing from her passing because there wasn't a single life insurance policy in place. By the time the third trial rolled around, the judge had already tossed Jennifer Crew out as a witness. Her history of cheating and petty theft destroyed her credibility, especially since no one could prove Ryan ever made that confession call. Fresh evidence paved the way for a third courtroom showdown in January of 2011. Defense lawyers brought in a specialist to suggest Sarah might have blacked out unexpectedly, leading to her accidental drowning. Multiple doctors took the stand to explain how hidden heart or brain issues could have made her pass out. On the flip side, the prosecution's medical team completely dismissed those theories as nonsense. People who worked with Sarah came forward to reveal some concerning details about her daily routine. It turned out she would frequently catch naps in her vehicle right before starting work at the dentist's office. She constantly dealt with bad allergies and really intense stomach cramping. Dr. Benjamin Mesmer, who worked with Sarah, recalled that she complained about her head and stomach hurting on the very day she died. A friend chatting with her later that evening remembered Sarah mentioning a headache and some stiffness in her neck. That same friend noted how exhausted she sounded, and apparently Sarah nodding off in weird places was a running joke among her circle. Someone close to her even wondered out loud if she might be suffering from narcolepsy. That condition makes it nearly impossible to stay awake during the day due to extreme drowsiness. People dealing with this disorder really have a hard time keeping their eyes open for any length of time. Sufferers usually need several catnaps just to function, but Sarah's mom took the stand to shut that theory down completely. Ruth Ann Stewart, Sarah's mother, testified for the state and strongly opposed the defense's narrative. She insisted her daughter never had sleep problems, describing her as a healthy kid who always stayed on top of her well-being. Sarah stuck to a strict routine, and her mother claims she never saw her looking overly tired. Working as a dental hygienist meant she got regular, thorough checkups from medical professionals. Her last physical exam showed she was in peak condition right before she died. All those stories about her being sleepy didn't really prove anything concrete in the end. The defense called in an expert trained in how the human body reacts to physical stress and injury. This specialist argued that the marks on Sarah's body just didn't look like what you would see in a violent drowning. Holding someone down from the front would definitely break neck bones and leave defensive bruises on their limbs. Attacking from behind would have caused noticeable trauma to her knees, hips, or pelvis as she struggled. The medical examiner didn't find a single trace of those types of injuries during the autopsy. Ryan's lawyers admitted they couldn't explain exactly why Sarah died that evening, but Dr. Dave Smile, an ER specialist, pointed out that around 300,000 sudden deaths happen annually, with young people making up a small percentage. In about 33% of those tragedies, autopsies come back clean without showing any heart or brain failure. He agreed that given how hard the paramedics worked to revive her, the lack of marks was strange. It actually shocked him that her body didn't show more damage from the resuscitation attempts alone. The judge told the jury to weigh everything, and they had to admit Ryan didn't seem to have a reason to kill her. Sometimes people just die, and medical science simply can't figure out exactly why it happened. Ryan's team urged the jurors to look closely at every single fact before deciding. Despite proving he had no motive, the defense ultimately failed to sway the room one last time. It took the jury about 12 hours to return a guilty verdict, sending Ryan away for 15 years. They convicted him largely because the bathroom floor was dry and Sarah's body didn't have enough water on it. They also didn't trust his background and felt certain he was acting during his call to 911. One juror later admitted that the main reason he voted guilty was simply because of how Ryan acted during the trial. Observers noted that Ryan seemed completely emotionless when the gruesome autopsy photos were displayed in court. He stayed off the witness stand, though he did make a statement after the jury delivered their verdict. "I absolutely adore my wife. I never laid a hand on her. I never got a real chance to tell my side of the story. They slapped the cuffs on me for murder the very next day after she died. I would tell you exactly what happened to her if I knew, but I am just as lost as everyone else. I was not anywhere near that bathroom while she was in there. I loved that woman and would never hurt her." Ryan's family has stood by him with fierce loyalty through all of this. They have drained their life savings just to pay for his defense lawyers. You will see them protesting outside the courthouse every single time he has a hearing. A heartbreaking tragedy from over a decade ago still brings people together who share the same doubts. The last real shot at clearing Ryan Widmer's name hinges on DNA testing. Biological evidence is usually the key to proving guilt or innocence in these mysterious death cases. What makes this case weird is that they are asking for the victim's genetics, not the convict's. His legal team is fighting for a court order to test that DNA for genetic heart issues like long QT syndrome. That syndrome is a dangerous heart condition that shows up as an irregular rhythm on a standard 12-lead ECG. It leads to random blackouts and a much higher risk of the heart just stopping. It is an electrical glitch in the heart that triggers fainting spells and seizures. The Mayo Clinic warns that young folks with this condition are at high risk for sudden death. You can be born with the gene that causes it, or it might just develop on its own later in life. Sad to say, a judge in Warren County already shut down Ryan's request to test Sarah's genetic material. I sat through all 3 trials and could not find a single reason why he would do it. Then again, the prosecutor does not have to prove a motive to get a conviction. It is just extremely rare to see a murder trial where there is zero apparent reason for the crime, noted former prosecutor Mike Allen. Ryan is currently sitting in his cell waiting on a federal court decision that could set him free. He has been behind bars for 14 years. Unless a federal judge steps in, he will not get a shot at freedom until July of 2025. As each year goes by, I keep praying the next one is when I walk free, because I loved Sarah and never hurt her. Simply being innocent is not enough to get a conviction overturned, explained legal expert Donald Castor. He teaches law at the University of Cincinnati and works as an attorney for the Ohio Innocence Project. You have to prove that the court actually violated your constitutional rights during the trial. Widmer gets his first chance to sit before the parole board in the year 2025. Experts say his odds are slim, though since the board usually favors inmates who admit what they did and show remorse. Despite everything, Ryan Widmer sticks to his story and insists he is innocent. If this story grabbed your attention, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. We drop new true crime videos every single night. Catch you on the next one. Keep your eyes open and stay safe. Did Ryan Widmer actually do it? This young jock is currently behind bars for a truly horrific felony. He is doing life right now and will not even sniff parole until 2025, which is over a decade past the tragedy. He keeps battling to flip that verdict. The whole situation has grabbed headlines across 3 states and got everyone arguing about whether he is truly innocent.